Only a few insects were harmed in the making of this video. How's it going, guys? My name is Ashwas and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome to episode 6. Welcome to episode 6 of the Obsidian Cafe Racer build series. A build series where we are turning this hunker junk Pulsar 150 from the junkyard into a street-worthy cafe racer. Let's do a quick recap of what we have done to this bike so far since we have crossed almost halfway point of the intended number of episodes in this build series. In episode 1, we got the bike, we made sure it ran, and then right after that, we completely stripped the bike, removed all the wiring, all the parts out of the bike, which actually made it run and made it a bike because, well, that was a smart thing to do, I think. In episode 2, we began the rear monoshock conversion. As you guys know, this bike came with originally with dual rear shocks. We converted that to monoshock in episode 2 and started working on the frame itself. We cut up the frame in episode 2. In episode 3, we completely finished the monoshock conversion. We finished welding the frame, modifying the frame, and completely welded it. In episode 4, we finished the front end of the bike. The front clip-ons, the front headlight, and the front mudguard. And in the last episode, episode 5, we actually finished welding all the small bits, final round of welding. And then we actually assembled everything back onto the bike, more or less, and began the bodywork process. We made the tail section, we made the side panels, and that is pretty much what we have done so far. As promised in the last episode, we are beginning work on the fiberglass parts themselves. We are going to be making the fiberglass seat pans, and we are going to be attempting to make the rear tail section out of fiberglass itself. I say attempting because this is my first time actually doing it, and I don't have much experience with it, so this is going to be a learning process. So without any further ado, let's do this. Let me tell you the order of operation. Since this is my first time doing the fiberglass, we are going to start with the easiest part on the entire bike to make out of fiberglass, and that is going to be the seat pan. Now we are going to be using a technique called fiberglass overlay, where we are going to overlay the fiberglass and epoxy it, and whatever shape the fiberglass is laid on will be its final shape once it's all dried. So we are going to level the bike, then wrap the tail section and part of the tank in plastic wrap to form the shape so that fiberglass obviously doesn't stick to it, and then we can easily pull out the fiberglass part later. So let's do this. I like to love you every day. I like to love you. Here we are. Now that we have the bike looking like a Christmas gift, what we are going to be doing next is the fiberglass part itself. So now what we have is a proper base to make our fiberglass seat pan out of. Now the next part is going to be the fiberglass, so let's get on to it. We haven't even started working on it properly yet, and we are already learning stuff. Now this is the first layer of fiberglass mat which we cut up and have placed here. Now the first try which I did was just to lay up the entire sheet and try to mold it onto the curves, but since this is a rectangular piece and those are curvy surfaces, those two don't go together, so we had to cut some reliefs on the. I did all this because I would prefer the bottom layer to be one single continuous piece. So on the second layer, what we did was we actually cut the fiberglass into strips so that it could hug the contours more easily. Again, there are a few gaps, but I think when we actually pour down the epoxy, this will actually adhere to the gaps and close in the gaps. So now that the fiberglass reliefing and all is done, we can move on to mixing up the epoxy and then laying it onto the fiberglass itself so that we get a hard panel. We'll see. I have just cut up 2 layers, and if that 2 layers isn't enough, we will cut up another layer and make it a 3-layer jig. Okay, but before we start, now for the epoxy, we have the epoxy. It's a 2-part epoxy. So we have the epoxy and the hardener, which we have to mix into a ratio of 10:1, and that is why we have a weight scale. This is going to help us weigh accurately what our epoxy weighs, and then once it's actually weighed and all mixed up together, then we can hopefully, without a lot of fuss, just get on to laying it, and that should solve most of our problems. Hopefully, I say hopefully. Now, what we're doing here is mixing the epoxy itself. The epoxy has to be mixed in the ratio of 10 parts epoxy and 1 part hardener. For the normal people watching, you might not see anything wrong with this video, but for the very few of you who might have any experience with working with fiberglass in the past, you can clearly tell right off the bat the biggest mistake I made while working with fiberglass. Now, a quick disclaimer would be that we are going to be making a lot of those mistakes in this episode, and I will be shining light on those mistakes as I realize them in real time. So let's continue watching.
Night and day, if I may. I'd like to. I'd like to love you every day. I'd like to love you, love you. I'd like to love you, love you. If I may, if I may. I'd like to love you, love you. I'd like to love you, love you. Day 2.
So it is the next day. We are back at work on the obsidian build, and now the fiberglass part you saw me lay in the last clip had the time to cure overnight. It has been almost 24 hours after I actually laid this thing, and I'm happy to tell you that we failed on this thing. Like, we did not fail on the actual fiberglass part of it. As you can see, the fiberglass has hardened completely to such an extent that it actually hurts my fingers just by knocking it. So we did not fail on that section of the fiberglass done. We failed on actual layup of the fiberglass. As it was my first time, I didn't know how much to actually cut up and how this would work. These mats actually turned out harder than I anticipated, and they were really hard to form. So we've learned our lessons, and where we failed is actually at this point and this point. Like, it was supposed to come down till here and then go up, but it did not come out. It has a huge gap over here, which is just epoxy and no fiberglass, which is not desirable. And I accidentally placed 2 relief cuts at the same point. So that created this big gap, which again is not desirable and is a weak point again. Now, in this side, again, this side was okay, properly done, but there was not enough fiberglass at this same corner which we had on that side. And again, there's a hole which isn't supposed to be there. The fiberglass is supposed to come down till here and then transition here. The tail section, however, I am very happy with the tail section. We can do the same thing again. So, but we'll have, what this means is we have to take this off and make another part. And I'm not sad about it because, to be honest, I would be much happier if the part would be proper and to my liking, rather than it just being wrong. And we don't want to cut corners on this thing. And the parts, well, they are comparatively simple to make. So we're gonna just cut the bullshit and just do this once more. But before that, we are going to remove this, and that is going to be a process in itself. Let's do this, shall we? You know what? Screw the time lapse. We actually did it in quite very fast, actually. So, because we used the cling wrap, what actually happened was, see, it's really easy to take off. We had this off in like less than no time. Cling wrap is off. We have the complete hardened part. In my book, that's a success. So let's do this properly this time, shall we? During the second attempt, we did things a little differently. In the first attempt, we cut the fiberglass strips lengthwise. Since that did not work so well, this time we cut the strips not lengthwise. Another thing we did differently here was we actually wore gloves. Let me tell you folks, I spent a whole lot of time cleaning my hands after they had epoxy and fiberglass over them after this clip, which you did not see, and let me tell you, it was not fun. So working with fiberglass gloves are a must. We also changed up our fiberglass layup technique in this attempt, and this one came out much better than the last one, as you're gonna see in just a bit.
Oh, life ain't a ding dong. If I could take you up in boom, 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 tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream.
Day 3.
And there we have it. Now this one came out better than the last one because now we have materials on all the sides. We do not have any big extensive gaps which we cannot fill later on. We had a huge gap right here in this area which had to be filled, which this one fills completely.
Life could be a dream. Ain't a ding dong. Plans would come true. Ain't a ding dong. My whole life loving you. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Now every time I look at you, something is on my mind. If you do what I want you to, baby, we'd be so fine. Oh, life ain't a ding dong.
So now that we have the seat finalized, we are going to move on to the next big thing, which is the tail flap. The tail section. Now, I don't know if it's visible on camera, but this thing has taken up some beating over the time between which we made it and right now. And I don't know if you can say, but this is pretty much destroyed. The edges have disappeared. There's been a lot of pitting. And if we made the part off of this, it would turn out to be smaller than what we actually want. So we'll have to make a new one of these. Let's not waste any more time and just do it. Now, how we made this part was similar to how we made the other foam part. We took a sheet of foam, we cut it into pieces, stuck them together, sanded it down until it looked like something which we actually wanted to make. The only difference this time was that the foam was a little bit thicker. Right after the styrofoam mold was made, we went up straight to the fiberglassing part and creating the part, which was a big mistake. I have not compared the mold to the original part, and you'll see how that turns into a mistake in a little while.
Day 3.
So it is the next day and we are going to unveil what we just did yesterday. Now in the last clip you saw me do was actually apply another coat of epoxy just in hopes of smoothing out the surface, but we'll see how that goes. Nice. Well, we just removed the mold with minimum amount of damage. So, as for the part itself, I'd say it came out. This one put up more of a fight than the other parts. But well, this is only a third part. Third time we're working with fiberglass, so not too worried about that. As for the part itself, I think we can make this work. Again, I fear that we might have come out actually shorter, just like the first seat pan. This corner, I'm not too much confident on this thing, but damn, and I thought styrofoam was messy. Here we are, there's the piece, and I still have to sand the edges. Very much not looking forward to it, but that's the seat pan. on the bike. Next we'll have to move towards, where is this guy playing hide and seek? This is much thicker and more epoxy than the seat pan, and so I'm thinking it's gonna make a lot of mess, but well, we already started it, so can't get any worse, can it?
I'd like to. I'd like to love you every day.
So there we have it, the fiberglass parts are on the bike itself. Now, the seat pan, as far as the seat pan goes, I have no complaints with the second seat pan. This one came out much better than the first one, and actually fits up much better as intended. Like, this thing hugs the frame rail so good. As you can see, there are multiple lines where I was indecisive of whether I should cut it down low or up high. But as you can see on the other side, this one grabs the rail very evenly. Now again, I'll have to smooth it. I'll have to sand it down a bit more, but you get the rough idea of what's going to happen, and we will be doing it by the end of the episode. Now, coming to the tail section itself, as you can see, this thing doesn't give the look which the other foam section actually gave us, because, well, this one came out much different and does not meet my expectations for this thing. But after mocking it up, I have realized that our probability of having to remake this part again went from low to highly likely, because, well, there are some places where the fiberglass didn't quite settle, and this is quite an important section, the corner. Apart from the mistakes on the fiberglass parts itself, I've realized that we have made a big mistake on the mold itself. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, this is a fiberglass mold which we made the part off of, and this is the original part which we had made for the mock-up block. But when I align it properly, you can see that this is tapering a lot more. And the tail section, the end towards this end part, is much narrower than the front of it. Now, when we go to the mold itself, since it was all white, it was very hard to see the lines on it. So the part which we actually made does not taper quite as much as our original part. So we'll have to do some modifications to this itself. So we'll have to taper it much more aggressively than it already is. We'll have to just take the L and just do it.
I'd like to. I'd like to love you every day. I'd like to love you. I'd like to love you, if I may. I'd like to love you, I'd like to love you, I'd like to love you night and day, if I may.
So there we have it, the part is made, and this one came out much better than the old one actually did. This one is much more complete. There are a few injects there, but this one does not have any missing pieces. It is completely covered, and front to back, and the curves on this thing came out much better than the last one. So the next step would be to cut this one, and we have to be extra careful because this one actually is good. So we'll have to be extra precise on our cutting.
I'd like to love you, I'd like to love you night and day, if I may. I'd like to. I'd like to love you every day. I'd like to love you. I'd like to love you, if I may. I'd like to love you, I'd like to love you, love you. I like to love you night and day. If I may.
So there we have it, folks. Just like that, we are done. We are finished with the seat pan and the rear cowl. Seat pan came out amazing. This rear cowl, I'm still not happy with it, but we'll see what we can do that in the next episode. But if I want to do that on camera, because I don't think you'll be interested in watching me do that again. So now, what else you saw me do at the end was we fixed the tail. No, we fixed the tail section. That's not going anywhere, and we did one addition. We got the seat lock to work fine, absolutely fine. If I need, this is a two-hand operation, but wait. Well, like we have the lock pin and front lock. I mean, whatever that plate is on the bike, which keeps the seat down. I know there's nothing there yet to receive this end, but we'll be making that in the later episode. So what the seat does now is it just sits there, locks in place, and does not come out unless and until you open the lock, that is. Now, since the majority of the work is done from the next episode, we are going to be picking up pace on the build itself, and we are going to be doing more than one thing in one episode, that is. So in the next episode, we'll hopefully be tackling the side body panels and other stuff on the bike, which I cannot remember right now, but we will be doing that. Yes, that. The footrests on either side. We are going to be changing those footrests to the Neo model Pulsar so that we get our footrest position in the right position. So, with all that said and done, thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing. Hit the like button if you like the video, hit the dislike button if you did not like this video for any reason. Let me know why. And since this was my first time doing this, done with fiberglassing yet. So if you guys, any of you guys have any experience with working on fiberglass and would like to give me some tips on it, you can do that. You're fairly welcome to do that in the comment section below. So with all that said and done, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.